She was only 6, and she had not spoken in days, not since the accident. Her father, once the most powerful voice in every room, now trembled as he carried her into the hospital. He had millions in the bank, but not a single doctor could promise her a future with moving legs. Then a voice called out from the curb. It was small, it was steady. "Sir, I can make your daughter walk again." The millionaire turned and froze. The January air in downtown Atlanta had a bite to it, sharp and mean. Cars honked, jackets were pulled tighter, and hospital staff moved fast under gray skies. But one boy did not move. He sat on a frayed cardboard sheet near the sliding entrance of the children's hospital. He was about 9, maybe 10, with a red beanie pulled low and a jacket clearly not his size. The sleeves swallowed his hands, and one boot had duct tape wrapped around the toe. He was not begging. He was not crying. He simply watched. Some nurses nodded to him on their way in. One janitor gave a small wave. He was not new here. In fact, on most Saturdays, he could be found sitting on that exact spot, scribbling in a worn notebook or folding a square towel carefully over his lap. That morning, he saw the man before the man saw him. Jonathan Hale stepped out of a sleek black SUV, a coat draped over his shoulders and exhaustion hanging from his frame like lead. In his arms, wrapped in a pink blanket, was his daughter, Ava. 6 years old, big brown eyes, and silent. She had not spoken since the car crash. She had not walked since that day. He adjusted her softly in his arms, her legs stiff and unresponsive. The hospital had become routine now. Doctors, specialists, more tests. None of them knew what to do, except keep managing expectations. That phrase had become his nightmare. But as he walked toward the doors, a voice cut through the cold. "Sir, I can make your daughter walk again." Jonathan turned, startled. There stood the boy in the oversized jacket and taped-up boots. His voice was not loud. It was calm, measured, and serious. There was no laughter in his tone, no mischief in his eyes, just belief. Like he had spoken a fact, not a hope. Jonathan blinked. "What did you say?" The boy tucked his notebook under his arm. "I can help her walk again." The millionaire frowned. "That is not funny." "I was not joking." Jonathan took a step closer, shielding Ava from the cold. He studied the boy's face. Pale, thin, quiet, a crack in his glasses, dirt on his jeans. "You do not even know her," Jonathan snapped. "You do not know what she has been through." "I do not have to know her to help," the boy replied gently. Jonathan scoffed. "What are you, some kind of child doctor?" The boy's hand rested on the notebook's spine. "My mother was a physical therapist. She taught me what she knew. She believed the body remembers." Jonathan's grip on Ava tightened. She helped a man walk again after 5 years in a wheelchair. No machines, just hands, patience, and faith. Jonathan looked away, shaking his head. This was ridiculous. A child talking like this? It had to be a scam. A weird act. He turned without another word and walked into the building. But something about the boy's voice followed him. It echoed in his head through every hallway, past every waiting room. It settled somewhere deep in his chest, where all the pain lived. Later that day, when he stepped out of the hospital and saw the boy still there, still waiting, Jonathan did something he never expected. He walked back. Jonathan Hale told himself it was ridiculous, that he should forget it, that the boy was probably just repeating something he had overheard. But as he drove home that night with Ava asleep in the back seat, the words haunted him. "I can make your daughter walk again." It was not the sentence, it was how the boy said it. Not with excitement, not with hope, with certainty. Like he knew something Jonathan did not. The next day came cold and quiet. He had not told anyone, not Ava's doctors, not the nurses, not his assistant. But just before noon, his car pulled into a gravel lot near Harrington Park. Ava sat in the back seat, a blanket around her legs and her favorite stuffed bear on her lap. She looked out the window at the boy who was already waiting. He had no parents in sight, just that same overstuffed coat, his red beanie, and a faded gym bag beside him on the bench. Jonathan stepped out of the car, then gently helped Ava into her wheelchair. They rolled toward the boy in silence. No one spoke. "Hi again," the boy said, polite and soft. Jonathan nodded stiffly. Ava gave a little wave. "Hi," she said. It was the first word she had spoken all morning. Jonathan stared at her, then at the boy. "How did you know her name?" "You said it yesterday. I remember things." Jonathan exhaled through his nose. "So, what now? Are you going to do some kind of trick? Make her float?" He ignored the sarcasm. "No, sir. Just the basics." He reached into his gym bag and pulled out a pair of clean socks, a tennis ball, a small jar of cocoa butter, and a cloth bundle that looked warm. Jonathan narrowed his eyes. "What is all that?" "My mother's tools. The rice is for heat, the ball is for pressure, the rest is for the muscles." Jonathan folded his arms. "And you know how to use all this?" "Yes, sir. I watched her help people when we used to go to shelters. She said everybody deserves to feel human again, even the ones who forgot how." The boy knelt beside Ava. "If it's okay, may I work with your legs for a bit? I promise nothing will hurt, and if it does, just say stop." Ava looked up at her father. Jonathan hesitated, jaw tight. "Fine, but one sign of pain and we are leaving." The boy nodded and gently removed the blanket from her legs. He placed the warm cloth rice pack over her thighs. She flinched, then relaxed. "Too hot?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, it feels nice." For several minutes, he just let the warmth settle in. Then he began rotating her legs gently. No tugging, no strain, just soft movements. Jonathan stood behind them, arms crossed, watching. "You ever do this before?" he asked. The boy did not look up. "Many times. My mom used to let me help. She taught me how to feel where the body is tight." He tapped lightly on Ava's knee. "Do you feel that?" She shook her head. "No." "That's okay. I'll ask again in a bit." As he worked, he kept talking to her. He asked her about cartoons, favorite colors, and snacks she missed. Slowly, Ava opened up. Her answers were short at first, but then she began asking questions too. "Do you go to school?" "I used to." "Why not now?" The boy hesitated. "My mom got sick, then she passed. I've been trying to figure things out since then." "I'm sorry." "Thank you," the boy said with a soft smile. Jonathan's face changed slightly. Still guarded, but less harsh now. After about 30 minutes, the boy gently tapped her ankle again. "Do you feel that?" Ava blinked. "Kind of."
Jonathan leaned forward. "She sometimes says that in therapy, too." "Yes," the boy replied, "but this is not a hospital. There are no machines, no fear, just wind and trees and open sky. Sometimes the body listens better that way." Jonathan did not speak, but he was clearly paying attention. The boy helped Ava stretch her legs, then showed her how to wiggle her toes. Nothing obvious happened, but she did not frown. "I will come again next week," the boy said, packing up. "Muscles remember. They just need to be reminded." Ava smiled. It was small, but real. Jonathan pulled out a folded bill from his pocket and held it out. The boy stepped back. "No, sir, I do not want your money." Jonathan blinked. "Then why are you doing this?" The boy shrugged. "Because your daughter smiled." And that was the moment Jonathan Hale, the millionaire who had tried everything, realized he could no longer ignore a beggar boy in duct-taped boots.
The next Sunday, the sky was clearer. The sun hung low, and a thin layer of frost still clung to the tips of the swings at Harrington Park. But by 11:45, the boy was already there. He sat on the same bench near the crooked basketball court, towel folded, supplies laid out with quiet purpose. The same red beanie covered his ears. The same oversized jacket hung off his small frame like a coat of honor. It had once belonged to his mother. She used to call it his helper's coat. Every good healer needs something that reminds them why they care, she had told him once. He had never forgotten. At exactly noon, the black SUV rolled into the gravel lot again. This time, it did not just stop, it parked. The engine went silent, and when the door opened, Ava was already smiling. Jonathan stepped out looking tired, but something was different. He did not hesitate. He helped his daughter into the wheelchair, and the moment her feet touched the footrests, she waved to the boy across the park. "Hi!" she called brightly. "Hi, Ava," the boy answered, waving back. Jonathan wheeled her over slowly. "Morning," he said to the boy, offering a small nod. "Not much, but more than before." The boy nodded in return. "Glad you came." "Did not make any promises," Jonathan muttered, but there was no sharpness in his tone this time. They began. Same warm cloth, same tennis ball, same cocoa butter gently rubbed into tight leg muscles that had forgotten how to stretch. But something was changing, slowly, subtly. "Can you press your heel into the ground?" the boy asked, voice calm. Ava closed her eyes and focused, her brow furrowed. Her fingers gripped the armrests. Nothing. "Not yet," she whispered. "That is all right," he said, smiling. "Sometimes the brain takes a while to find the right hallway. You just have to knock long enough." Jonathan stood a few steps behind them, hands tucked into his coat pockets. "Why do you do all this?" he asked suddenly. The boy looked up. "Because I remember what it felt like when my mom helped someone." Jonathan's eyes narrowed. "And what did it feel like?" "Like hope was possible. Like even broken things still mattered." There was a long pause. Jonathan watched his daughter closely. He noticed the way her shoulders relaxed, the way her eyes lit up when the boy spoke, the way she laughed quietly when he said something silly about peanut butter sandwiches being better than pizza. That sound, her laugh, had not filled his ears in months. The boy worked patiently, guiding Ava's legs through small motions, asking questions, making her feel seen. Never rushed, never discouraged. And then, "Try to wiggle your toes," he said gently. Ava closed her eyes and focused. Her brow furrowed, her fingers gripped the armrests. Nothing. "Not yet," she whispered. "That is all right," he said, smiling. "Sometimes the brain takes a while to find the right hallway. You just have to knock long enough." Jonathan stood a few steps behind them, hands tucked into his coat pockets. "Why do you do all this?" he asked suddenly. The boy looked up. "Because I remember what it felt like when my mom helped someone." Jonathan's eyes narrowed. "And what did it feel like?" "Like hope was possible. Like even broken things still mattered." There was a long pause. Jonathan watched his daughter closely. He noticed the way her shoulders relaxed, the way her eyes lit up when the boy spoke, the way she laughed quietly when he said something silly about peanut butter sandwiches being better than pizza. That sound, her laugh, had not filled his ears in months. The boy worked patiently, guiding Ava's legs through small motions, asking questions, making her feel seen. Never rushed, never discouraged. And then, "Tried to wiggle your toes," he said gently. Ava nodded and stared down at her feet. Jonathan leaned forward instinctively. A pause. Then, the tiniest movement. Her big toe twitched, once, then again. Jonathan froze. "Did you see that?" he whispered. "Yes, sir," the boy said. "It is small, but it is real." Ava gasped. "I did it!" Jonathan knelt beside her. You moved your toe!" She smiled so wide her cheeks dimpled. I felt it!" The boy did not cheer or celebrate. He just nodded. "That means the path is still open." Jonathan sat back slowly. "The doctor said she may never feel anything again." They did not say never. They said maybe. I do not listen to maybe. I listen to the muscles. They stayed longer that Sunday. Jonathan helped this time. The boy showed him how to press on certain nerves behind the knees, how to rub tension out of her calves without hurting her. It was strange. Jonathan Hale, millionaire, former venture capital giant, kneeling in a public park beside a boy with no home, no money, and no shoes with tape, learning how to hope again. As they packed up, the boy handed Ava a small plastic ring with a tiny flower on it, the kind you find in a vending machine. "What is this for?" she asked, giggling. "Proof," the boy said, "that you are already stronger than you think." She beamed. Jonathan looked at the boy. "What is your name?" "Zion," he answered softly. "Zion Carter." Jonathan held out his hand this time, a full handshake. "Thank you, Zion." Zion looked him in the eye. "Next Sunday, same time." Jonathan nodded. And for the first time since the accident, he drove home feeling something more powerful than fear. He felt like a father again. 3 Sundays passed, then 4, and still, every week at noon sharp, Zion was there. Same bench, same jacket, same care. The park had become a kind of sacred space, not because of what it was, but because of what it meant. Ava looked forward to it more than anything. Her therapist at the hospital noticed the change too. She laughed more, she tried harder. And her muscles? Well, they were waking up. Slowly, surely. But then came the Sunday no one saw coming. The SUV pulled into the lot as usual, but this time something was off. Ava's eyes were red, her curls were not brushed, she was not smiling. Zion stood up immediately. Jonathan opened the door and lifted Ava gently into her chair. Her legs were trembling, not from effort, but from emotion. "What happened?" Zion asked, voice soft but firm. Ava looked down, twisting the ring on her finger. Jonathan answered for her. "Ava fell yesterday. She was trying to move on her own, tripped and hit her knee." Zion knelt down beside her. "Does it hurt now?" "No," she whispered, "but I was scared. I don't want to try anymore." Zion paused. He looked at Jonathan, who looked helpless, then back at Ava. "Do you know what my mother used to tell me when I got scared?" Zion said quietly. "She said fear is just the body's way of checking if you still care." Ava looked up slowly. "If you weren't scared," Zion said gently, "that would mean you had given up. But you didn't. You're still here." "But I fell," she said, tears forming again. "And you got back up, even if someone helped. That's all that matters." Jonathan sat on the bench, his hands in his lap. "She doesn't want to stretch today." Zion nodded once. "Then we won't stretch. We'll just sit." He pulled the towel out and spread it on the grass. Then he sat down beside Ava. Not as a helper, not as a healer, just as a friend. She looked at him curiously. "Aren't you going to try anything?" "Nope," he said with a small smile. "Today, your heart needs more work than your legs." Jonathan was stunned. In all the thousands of dollars he had paid for care, no one had ever said that. They sat there for almost an hour, talking about everything but therapy. Zion told her about his mother's hummingbird tattoo, about the time they got caught in the rain and danced anyway, about the last thing he said to him. "The world breaks people, but kindness puts them back together." Ava finally asked, "Do you think I will ever walk again?" Zion paused. "I think you're already standing up on the inside," he said. She blinked. He nodded. "And sometimes the body just follows the soul." That night back at home, Ava asked her father a question he never expected to hear. "Can we go early next time?" He smiled. "We can go whenever you want." But Zion never said why he showed up every week, never told them where he went after they left. He never asked for food, never took money, just gave. Then one Saturday morning, weeks later,
Jonathan woke up to a knock on his door. It was the janitor from the hospital. "He told me I should tell you," he said, handing Jonathan an envelope. "He left this with me, said if he ever didn't come back to give it to you." Inside was a folded drawing, a sketch of Ava, standing, arms wide, smiling. On the back were 4 words in messy, childlike writing: "Your daughter can walk." Jonathan sat down slowly, the air knocked from his lungs. That Sunday they went to the park anyway. Ava asked to be wheeled to the bench. She placed the drawing on the spot where Zion always sat, and she whispered, "Thank you."